Hey guys, it's Nick. I am back as promised. Going to do my best to answer some questions and concerns that you have about Bitcoin. And at the end of the video, I am going to give you some of my concerns about Bitcoin. Yes, I have concerns, and yes, they are big. So stay tuned to the end of the video. I think Bitcoin could go up, it could succeed, it could go down, it could fail. I have no idea, but I think it's a very interesting topic, and I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. So let's get to some of your questions that you have submitted. And thank you for everybody who did that. SL Hines 7 says, aren't Bitcoins just air and fiat like the fiat US dollars that they're traded in? No, Bitcoins are not fiat. Fiat, a lot of people think, means not backed by anything. Like the US dollar is not backed by anything in the fact that there's no gold or silver behind it. Bitcoin is not backed by anything, but it is not fiat. US dollar is fiat because it is printed by authoritarian decree. So in other words, someone in government who holds a violent monopoly over you and over other people within their governmental jurisdiction, they have the power to print US dollars. They do not have the power to print Bitcoin. Bitcoins are mined similarly to gold and silver. So, therefore, Ben Bernanke cannot print a Bitcoin and send it out into the computer networks and ask your children to go into debt for it. Ed the Water Guy says, the politicians are getting ready to shut it down. Watch out. Yes, the politicians would love to shut it down. Unfortunately for the politicians, Bitcoin is spread out across so many different servers and so many different computers and networks across the globe that you can try to shut it down, you can make it illegal, but you can't really shut it down. Bitcoin is a body which does not have any limbs, any heart, or any brain. Therefore, you cannot kill it. If you aim for somebody's heart, you can kill it. If the government wanted to shut down PayPal, PayPal has one server, or maybe multiple servers, but they're still within the PayPal community. I mean, I don't know how PayPal works. They might have servers spread out across, but whereas PayPal may have a couple servers that they operate on, Bitcoin is literally traded using computers across a network spread out across the globe, which is really cool. What Chuck Schumer, one of the politicians, and one of his other fellow Goonies were complaining about is they were going to send the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, after the website Silk Road, which is only accessible through Tor, which is a software used to access the back door, the dark depths of the internet that aren't accessible to you and I without the Tor program. I don't know that much about it. I've never been to Silk Road. But ironically, when Chuck Schumer goes public and says that people are using Bitcoins to buy marijuana online and other drugs and having it sent anonymously to their house, the price of Bitcoin goes up. He probably hated that, but I got news for you, Chuck Schumer. I've heard that people are into getting marijuana anonymously. That's what I've heard. MaxSurf says, I've downloaded the software twice but can't get it to open and work. MaxSurf1, please go to the Bitcoin.org forums. There are a ton, literally a ton, of brilliant people who know a lot about Bitcoin, a lot about computers, and a lot about the internet. Post something on the Bitcoin forums, your question, your technical difficulty, and I guarantee you, you will get an answer within 15 minutes. Put details. Overlog says Bitcoins are cool until the day they will not be. Just like the rush going in, there will be a rush getting out. In the end, Bitcoins are just some virtual currency, which may or may not be an experiment by the oligarchs to see if the sheeple would swallow it up. Nothing would surprise me at this point. The fact that they did mention it is suspect for sure. What happens if your computer gets wiped out or an EMP hits? Yeah, there's already been a big rush in. Who knows if there will be a big rush out? I think that, like any commodity, people rush out in droves. That's what caused silver crashes. That's what causes gold crashes. And I know that that's a lot to do with manipulation, but it also has a lot to do with a lot of people hearing something or acquiring some bit of new knowledge regarding that commodity and going in and out of it. So yeah, Bitcoin is like any other commodity. Whether or not they're created as an experiment by the oligarchs, or I guess he assumes some kind of New World Order thing, that could be, but if you ask me, the New World Order would want Bitcoin as their last form of currency because they can't control it. Yes, it is digital currency. A lot of people say the New World Order wants everybody on a cashless society. I mean, that may be true. It's certainly where things are headed. Less and less businesses are preferring cash. And I know the Federal Reserve, just as a side note, the Federal Reserve now is trying to crack down on these banks which they think are squeezing the American people because of, get this, they're charging 1.5% or 2% transaction fees on debit card purchases. So this is just either a PR move by the Federal Reserve because they know that people are waking up to them, or it's something else. It's just theater. You're gonna get mad at these banks because they charge people a 1.5% fee when they stole billions of taxpayer dollars and got it for free. Just a side note. Sorry. Moving on. Jezebel says. By the way, Jezebel has some cool videos on her channel. Is there anything tangible about Bitcoins, or are they a form of digital currency? There's nothing tangible about Bitcoins. You cannot hold them. It is entirely digital. It is not something that you can hand to somebody. It is something that you can trade with somebody very easily if you have a piece of electronic technology such as a phone or a laptop computer. Some people are trying to make something called bit bills, which actually put the Bitcoin information or the Bitcoin key onto the cards so you can trade them as cards. But as to them being tangible, no, they are not. It is a digital currency. Exactly. Sharu says, do you think the price has been driven by media attention for Silk Road, which I mentioned earlier? That's the drug website. A lot of people trying to buy illegal drugs might be bidding up the price. Yeah, like I said, people are really interested in purchasing drugs anonymously. And at the moment, as far as I know, they can't go to Amazon.com and get some of their finest Northern Lights. Christ Punchers asks, how does one actually secure the Bitcoins that he buys or mines? Since this thing is all decentralized and there isn't a bank to go to when the balance are wrong, what is there to prevent computers from being hacked and scammed out of Bitcoins, or people losing Bitcoins due to user-end errors or computer crashes? Yeah, you got to take precautions, just like anything. If you buy a silver coin and you put it under your mattress, it's less safe than if you put it in your safe, right? So if Bitcoins are just on your computer, it's not very safe. If your computer is password protected, then your Bitcoins are more safe. If you take your wallet.dat file, which contains the key to accessing your Bitcoins, and you encrypt it, and then keep it on a USB stick, then that's even more safe. What I do personally with my Bitcoins is I back up my wallet.dat file, I encrypt it using a very long password, and I email it to myself with every email address I have. So I have a Yahoo email address and I have a Gmail email address. And so I email it to my Yahoo and Gmail accounts, and that way, if my computer explodes, if it goes up in flames, if I didn't have my wallet file backed up, my Bitcoins would be lost forever. But if I have emailed myself my wallet, my digital wallet, encrypted, then I can access it from anywhere in the world. And they're safe on Google servers and Yahoo servers. As long as they're encrypted, in my view, they're safe. It's much better than keeping them on my computer, where someone can break into my house, grab my laptop and run, and use brute force methods to access my laptop passwords, which he can then transfer all my Bitcoins to himself. And it's anonymous, so I can't really know where that transaction is going. I can know the address that it's going to, not the person. Dogspawn says, buy Bitcoins, says the Bitcoin seller. I don't know if he meant to ask, am I selling Bitcoins? Yeah, I'm dipping my toes into the waters of selling Bitcoins. When you buy Bitcoins at $1.60 and now they're $30, I think it would be stupid not to sell a portion of them, because that's basically my insurance. Because if Bitcoin goes down from here, I've recouped my expenses and then some. So if Bitcoin completely fails, if it's a failed project, if it is a Ponzi scheme, then I won't have lost any money. In total, I have invested very, very little into Bitcoins myself. I'm not a huge investor. And that's one of my concerns that I'll get to, is that a lot of people pushing Bitcoin have a vested interest in getting people to buy Bitcoins, because that therefore drives up the price, because they're big holders. I'm not a big holder. I've spent literally less than $1,000, way less than $1,000 total on Bitcoins. I haven't spent any more than that. So that's about the level of risk I'm willing to take. So here are some more of my concerns. And this goes along with what I was just saying. The price has risen extremely fast. When it went from $10 to $17 in less than a day, I was very concerned that it would crash down. It didn't crash down. It went way up to 30, which are all-time highs for Bitcoin, obviously, $31. And that concerns me greatly, because let's put it this way: if I'm building a skyscraper or any kind of building, if I just slap boards together and build it as high as I can and shoot this thing to the sky, it's not going to be very stable, right? If you take time to build the foundation of Bitcoin and to build level after level after level, then the entire structure becomes more stable. So what that means to me is that Bitcoin price hovered under $1 for several years, and a lot of people own thousands upon thousands of Bitcoins. There are Bitcoin millionaires out there. One guy on the forums, his signature is, "I wanna be a Bitcoin billionaire so freaking bad." And some people are Bitcoin millionaires. I don't know about billionaires, perhaps. But that concerns me. I would really like to see the price, honestly, hovering closer to $5 or closer to $10 right now. When in less than 2 weeks it goes from $7 to $31, you don't know the underlying stability of it. Bitcoin is purely supply and demand, but there's really no way for you to know the underlying economic stability of it. So that concerns me, and that's one reason why I'm taking less than 5% of the Bitcoins that I own, and I'm trying to trade in and out as I see the spikes and dips. Bitcoin is not anonymous, and I only say this as a concern because a lot of people think that Bitcoin is anonymous. It's definitely not anonymous. You use Bitcoin. Let me phrase it this way. The transactions are public record, but the transactions only show your Bitcoin address. So if you have a Bitcoin client, every time you do a new transaction, you get a new address. So it's not you assigned to one address. It's you own up to 100 addresses. And correct me if you're a Bitcoin expert, know more than I do, correct me if I'm wrong, but you own 100 addresses. And if you donate, I'll put my Bitcoin donation address below, and if you donate, let's say 10 bit cents to that address, you can go look up that address on the Block Explorer, and that's public record that you gave me 10 bit cents. And you could also look there and see if any other people have donated to me. So far I haven't gotten many Bitcoin donations. But my point is that it's not anonymous. You could take that address listed below, my Bitcoin address, my donation address, and you can look and see all the transactions that have been associated with that address. Doesn't necessarily tie that address to myself, but you could potentially get a warrant to obtain my IP address, which I think you can link to the Bitcoin address. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Right now, there are no escrows for Bitcoin. I really like doing business through eBay, and I really hate doing business through eBay. I like it because they have a very, very stellar dispute resolution service. And PayPal does. eBay owns PayPal, or PayPal owns eBay. I think eBay owns PayPal. PayPal is the smaller company. So PayPal has, or eBay has, a great dispute process. So if I pay for some item and some guy doesn't ever ship it to me, I can go to PayPal and I said, look, I never got this item. He never insured the package or whatnot. He never sent me a tracking address. Can you initiate a chargeback? Meaning PayPal takes the money that I gave to him and puts it back into my account, essentially. And that has its advantages and disadvantages. If I'm the seller and somebody pays me and I insure a package and I send it out and that person gets it but claims that they didn't get it, then there's no way to reverse the Bitcoin transaction at the moment. So, but I think that that's something in the future we could have escrow services like PayPal for Bitcoin, and I think it'll be a lot less expensive than PayPal. PayPal fees are outrageous. eBay fees to sell something are outrageous. 7% final valuation fee on items less than $100. So if I sell an item for $100, then it's $7 that eBay takes on top of the 3% that PayPal takes. So it's more like I'm only getting 90% of what I sold. So yeah, there's some concerns about Bitcoin. My last big concern is that the price is driven more by media attention than anything else. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about Bitcoin out there. And a lot of people don't understand it, but they try to jump in to it. And like DaVinci J15 says, he always pushes you to not jump in to Bitcoin unless you fully understand it. And I think with the price volatility that's happening now, the fact that it's gone from less than $1 to $31 in the span of 2 months, that tells me that people are buying Bitcoin and they don't really know anything about it. They're just speculating. It's one thing to be an oil speculator and know things about oil. It's another thing to be an oil speculator and you know nothing about oil. You know nothing about the supply and the demand. You know nothing about the political pressures, the production, the regulations that all affect oil. Likewise, I think a lot of people don't understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin, how it's created and whatnot. So those are my concerns. I have a few more. They're pretty minor. Most of my concerns that I have, I envision a future solution. Like right now, for instance, it's kind of tricky to back up your file. In the future, I envision that somebody will come up with a solution. Another example is that I can't trade Bitcoins on my phone right now. I have an iPhone. I can trade in and out of Mt. Gox through the web browser on my iPhone, but I can't go up to you with your iPhone and transfer the money. I think you can do that on Android now, but it's a very basic feature. So that's another one of my minor concerns, and something that I think people will come up with for a solution with in the future. I'm going to end with my 3 favorite things about Bitcoin, and keep in mind that I'm not trying to press Bitcoin on you. I'm not trying to drive up the price of Bitcoin. I'm just trying to get people to understand it more, okay? Yes, I have a little bit of an interest if Bitcoin price skyrockets, but I would prefer it to skyrocket in a more stable manner. My first favorite thing is that no one forces me to use Bitcoin. No one forces me to use Bitcoin. The US government forces you to use the dollar. The British government forces you to use the pound. The French government forces you to use the euro. And so on and so forth. Chinese government forces you to use the yuan. Because you have to pay taxes in it. Because, if you don't know this already, you are a tax slave. So my favorite thing about Bitcoin is that nobody forces you to use it. Nobody forces you to use gold, but you buy gold, and you've done very well. Nobody forces you to buy silver, but if you've bought silver, you've done very well. Nobody forces you to buy Bitcoin, but if you've bought it, you've done very well. So that's the thing. You could say anything that you want about Bitcoin, but it is 100% completely voluntary. If you never want to buy a Bitcoin, you never have to buy a Bitcoin. But if you live by yourself, completely self-sufficiently, out in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, you still are forced to produce goods or services to trade for US dollars so that you can pay your goddamn property taxes. So nobody's forcing me to use Bitcoin, and I love that. It is a viable, if not perfect, alternative to fiat money, meaning printed by authoritarian decree, printed by the representatives of a violent monopoly. It's an alternative to fiat money and commodities controlled by fiat money. Well, I shouldn't say that. Bitcoin price, I think, can be controlled by the US dollar at the moment, so that's not entirely true, but it is definitely an alternative to this US dollar that they are printing like they're going out of style. They are printing in a mad rush to keep the economy from collapsing and to keep it stable, to keep the illusion of stability, I should say, just a little bit longer while they loot what is while they loot what remains of U.S. productivity. It's really sad. The U.S. dollar is created out of debt. And I don't want to go into it too much here, but it's just the most evil system imaginable, our money supply. And lastly, my favorite, all-time favorite thing about Bitcoin is that it dwells within the soul of the internet. Like I said, there is no single brain, no single heart, no single limb. There's a book series, I don't know if you guys have read Ender's Game, but there's some great sequels to Ender's Game. And I think it's called, one of them is Xenocide, and one of them is called Children of the Mind. It's this just amazing trilogy. Speaker for the Dead, that's the first one. But Children of the Mind, Speaker for the Dead, it's set far in the future where everything is connected by an internet like Ansible. And eventually, this conscious entity arises from all the different connections along this web-like entity. And what I see as the internet, it's something like that is going to come around eventually. Something that we can't predict, and a lot of us can't control it. And it's really exciting to know what the future, to find out someday what the future of the internet will bring. I mean, if you think, I've said that Bitcoin is in its infancy, but really, the internet is in its infancy. This internet is just this incredible tool that we haven't even grasped how to use it. You know, when people discovered stone, you know, when caveman discovered stone, it was just a stone, right? It wasn't valuable until he started to shape it into a spear or shape it into another tool. When humans discovered iron, well, it's just some minerals in the ground. They knew about iron for a while, but until they figured out what to do with iron, until they figured out you could shape it into railroad tracks, and you could shape it into bridges, and you could shape it into swords. And then steel came along, which is some mixture. And we had skyscrapers, right? So the internet is not even a tool. It's an element. The internet is this element that we haven't yet shaped into a tool. So that's what I love most about Bitcoin, is I think that there is a huge opportunity for Bitcoin in the fact that the internet now has money. The internet now has the ability to trade instantly without the influence of the dollar, without the influence of fiat, without the influence of authoritarian decree, without the influence of destructive governments who think they can solve all of the world's problems using violence, by using guns to shuffle people around, calling them laws. So that's what I think. Just my 2-bit cents. Hope you guys got some of your questions answered. Like I said, I have a lot of concerns about Bitcoin, and I'm not pushing you to buy them. All right? My 2-bit cents. Peace.